Thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak today again. It's been 3 years since my last visit. Thanks to Paul for his hard work in creating a platform for passionate people developing apps. I've got those 3 words out already, the first part of my talk, of course. This is, I think, the 18th summit. I think I did the 12th, 13th. And Paul, it sounded like it's becoming like, now that's what I call music. And maybe when we get to 102, we're going to carry on with this kind of the album series in the future. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my work, to summarise in 3 years. When Paul said, what do you want to talk about? And so I'll summarise what I've been doing in 3 yeyears. And hopefully we can get through that as fast as possible, tell you about the future as I see it in healthcare and education, and also in health tech. These are the companies I work with. I do a lot of global health work, and Paul knows, and other people, if they follow me on social media and stuff, that I do a lot of travelling. Over the last 3 years, I've visited 35 countries, working with governments, health ministries, colleges, universities, global companies, as an advisor, as a consultant, to look at how we innovate, how do we disrupt the world of the healthcare that we live in, and how do we actually make healthcare more accessible, more affordable, and more equitable. And that's kind of been my vision for a long time. I really see my life more in the global health stage about what I do going forward. Going back a few years, back 2014, some of you may remember, I used the Google Glass, first of all, to the live streaming operation to medical students around the world. On that day, live streaming operation, I taught 14,000 people in 118 countries by a simple wearable platform to democratise education using technology. We fast moved to 2016. I did the world's first virtual reality operation, which literally live streamed surgery in VR. The first time in the world, this was watched by 55,000 people in 140 countries in about 4,000 cities. Again, showing you the power of high-tech, low-cost technology to make education more accessible to the world that we live in. My company, Medical Reality, is based in Soho, produced the world's learning platform in VR. You can download this as we speak on all the platforms, including Samsung Gear VR, Oculus, HTC Vive, Android and OS systems. And this is the new way of learning. You might as well get used to it. AR and VR are both coming in rapidly for surgical training and simulation, but also for undergraduates. And this is a much more exciting way to learn. We know that VR actually allows you to retain information up to 80% more than conventional methods of learning. So if you see this and how it works, of course, put videos into it, interact, it's immersive, it's an experience, and retention rates are much higher, of course, and so far more interesting a way of learning. So this is the kind of things we'll be doing in the future. So please, if you get a chance, download the app, and you might be able to play around with what we're doing in virtual reality. But of course, I've been working with many companies. A few I'll just highlight, of course. You might remember this thing recently going through government with Alan Mack, who are now going through a process of banning the fax machines from the NHS and also purging the pager, axe the fax, purge the pager. And our company, Medical Bleep, is now putting in a communication system into hospitals where Suffolk's been our pilot, now we're rolling out around the country so that the pager disappears from clinical practice. And that's going to be a mission for both Matt Hancock and the government and for us as a company to see how we can improve efficiency and transform healthcare using a different way of communication in terms of the Medical Bleep. I also work with GPDQ, and now we're looking at how we access GPs more directly through apps, etc., in London and other parts of the country, and we're going to expand that rapidly across the nation. Different to Babylon and other places, it's more about human contact, but ultimately we're going to the AI interface in due course. Of course, if you think about the training of surgery, which has been my passion, how do you share knowledge on a global scale, share knowledge not just 1 or 2 people, but many people, you might use social media. So this is Snapchat. The audience here, you're far too old for Snapchat, sadly. A lot of the users are really young, but the age of medical students and trainees, but it's relevant. So I'm the world's first operation on Snapchat. And you know what? 2 million people watch the operation live. Incredible, just on a simple social media platform. It's the way that people want to learn in the future. It was shared around the world. My work has been covered virtually every news station around the world, and every TV station has covered my stories, but Time magazine made a particular sort of groundbreaking story on this one on front page. Now, I'm really proud of my kind of media presence, but the one thing I'm most proud of is actually being on the front cover of Cosmopolitan magazine, of course. The work that I do around using spectacles to teach surgery, of course. My children, as a colorectal surgeon, think I'm pretty naff, really, not particularly exciting person, because all I do is look at people's bottoms all day. But for one day, a couple of years ago, they thought I was their hero dad. That's because Ashton Kutcher became my friend on Facebook and shared my stories. Suddenly, their dad was super cool. He was in the kind of A-listers of the Hollywood scene. So, but of course, when I teach my students around the world, I'm teaching tens of thousands of people across the globe at the same time and sharing knowledge, really, on a global scale. And that's got to be the question we do. How to scale up education and healthcare around the world. What about Twitter? Yes, I was the NHS curator for a whole week, and I couldn't resist the temptation, of course, to do a live NHS operation on Twitter using 140 characters or less in those days. We live tweeted an operation during the whole day. 1 million people engaged, and we're learning, both public and patients, and also for students, engaging in a live surgery just using tweets. So it's amazing how you can communicate with people on that global level. And of course, going forward, we managed to be on Channel 5 last year. Some of you may watch the operation live. It was the first time we did the first live operation on live TV, national news, and 5 did the operation I did right-hand colectomy. And actually, that series is now being shortlisted for a BAFTA award later this month. I mean, crazy. A live operation being cast for a BAFTA award. So it's amazing what we can do. A lot of our work is around globalisation. Some of you may know about Klaus Schwab, who coined the term the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I was at the World Government Summit in Dubai last month, giving the keynote on healthcare. And actually, the new terminology now is globalisation 4.0. How can technology be used to globalise the world, make the world a better place? How do we democratise a lot of things that we do? And this new term of globalisation is the kind of new coined term for the World Economic Forum, so we do share that. If you look at the work I do globally, of course, I'm on the Royal College Council. I've been there for 5 years. And one of the things I've been doing a lot is about how do you improve access to surgical training around the world. So I've been visiting a lot of countries. This is my programme. Been running for a few years. And we've now been partnering with many institutions, hence my travelling around the world, of course, working on all these institutions, DFID countries and communities to work out how we improve the surgical access. I facilitated over 300 placements in the UK, working with governments to figure out what targeted training they need so we can push them back into those host countries and hopefully raise standards across the globe. So we've had 300 placements across all the hospitals in the UK. And of course, we've been travelling. We've been interviewing with the military academy and also the kind of the civilian academy in Egypt, all across India, many institutions, all across Southeast Asia, as well as the Middle East, including these countries I visited, to figure out how we democratise education. This is me in a conflict zone, Gaza. I've run a 3-year programme with Medical Aid of Palestine, thinking how do we get to conflict zone? How do we improve standards using existing courses and training so that they become self-sufficient in the future? So it's not just about the first world countries. I also think about the future of healthcare. Our medical students, and we had this discussion earlier, and this is why I put slides in, about how you get nutrition into the curriculum, someone was mentioning earlier. Well, actually, it's more than that. How do you create the doctors of tomorrow, the digital doctors that we talk about? And actually, you've got to think about our medical school. Our medical school is not fit for practice. It hasn't changed for hundreds of years. It's still 5 years too long. It's too long in terms of curriculum. To change one thing on a curriculum takes 3 years. One MCQ change takes ages. How do you change it? Well, we've changed it. I've introduced Bart's Sex Medicine programme, the first programme in the world that's embedded into a curriculum for all students. We teach them about coding, developing apps, ideas. We're talking about tech innovation. The people that talk to them are from Singularity University in California, Harvard and Stanford. Talk about what ideas do you have to put into practice. Let's teach you those ideas. Venture capitalists, funding, crowdsourced funding, etc. They then have lectures, they go to hackathon, they give ideas, they pitch their ideas, and they get crowdsourced funding for ideas with a tech company in the summer months. This is the way we've got to teach our future generation to be able to cope with the digital transformation in healthcare. And of course, they wrote it up, and we've got loads of entrepreneurs come out of medical school at Bart. So we're really pleased that we were the first to think and redesign the curriculum at rapid pace to ensure that we build the future for our youngsters going forward. All this travelling, of course, it's really inefficient. I travel to these countries, it's hard work sometimes, you get tired. And actually, it's not that rewarding for a lot of people. It's personally rewarding. You may help a few people, not very many. What about doing better? What about transporting yourself in this kind of fashion? Well, I'm trying. I've experimented with 105 cameras in a process called photogrammetry, creating that virtual surgeon. We're adding AI interfaces. We're adding voice learning to that. So that then becomes the agent for change. That could teach many more people than I can in a lifetime. And that becomes the AI interface for the future. And of course, what about if you're in an operating theatre and you need advice from people? Could you call in surgeons from India, from London, from America, 3 time zones, the same place? I think you can. This is what we did about a year ago.
Hi everybody. Hi Shafi.
So the HoloLens itself really allows us to reshape the way we connect people, we communicate with people, also to be used in teaching and training. Initially, when you put the HoloLens on, it feels a bit strange, but actually within a few minutes it becomes quite normal. You feel as though you're just discussing cases with people in the same room, for example, like we do in normal hospital practice.
We can come in and actually look at this content in full 3D, and obviously when you're working in this case, the medical field, having a full 3D understanding of a situation, for example, is really much more powerful in solidifying how you want to navigate it in your mind.
Shafi, have a look at this.
Yeah, let me have a look over your shoulder. Oh yeah, I see what's going on there. I think I can give some advice, Carl. No problems. Thanks for calling me. So in the future, you won't be human beings, you'll be avatars, you'll be holograms, there are different ways of communicating with people. The first point of contact within 2 to 5 years will be an AI chatbot. It won't be a human being, you might as well get ready for it. Healthcare needs to evolve and change. This was me, my Princess Leia moment, of course, looking for Obi-Wan Kenobi. But this will be projected in real time using 5G for the first time. 5G is going to change the world we live in. It's so fast, latency is about 0.1 millisecond. Suddenly you can transport yourself in holograms avatars around the world, being able to practice medicine or perhaps teach people around the world. Next thing, of course, is my kind of sabbatical. So I've been in practice for 26 years, working at the Royal London Hospital as a consultant surgeon, of course, and I'm actually taking a sabbatical for the first time. May the 7th, so I shall share that journey with you a little bit. And why have I decided to take a sabbatical? Well, I'm doing a few things. I've become part of the NHS Assembly. There's 50 of us now to implement the NHS long-term plan, so I'll be helping the vision around the future of NHS. I've also I've become an advisor to the Department of Health Abu Dhabi. They have a $1 billion fund called the Abdallah Fund, and they want health tech innovation to transform their healthcare across 50 hospitals around Abu Dhabi, and I'll be helping supporting them on how we use that money in efficient ways so that we do improve the lives of many through the Middle East. But also, people often talk to me about this whole story around Bolivia. And this is Salar de Uyuni. This is the salt flats in Bolivia. Actually, this has got 90% of all the world's lithium, actually, and the Germans are now just going to mine that to help us produce batteries, etc. So I'll be also spending a year in Bolivia. I'll be spending a month here, a month in Bolivia, thinking about how do we create a future of healthcare. I'll tell you a story about Bolivia very quickly, which I think you'd enjoy. People often ask me, why the hell did you end up in Bolivia from the UK, from the east end of London? It's a great story. This was me in 2017, giving a talk at Exponential Medicine, a great conference in San Diego, part of Singularity University, where I was talking about the education, how accessible it should be for everybody. And I came across these two people randomly. They came and looking for me, they were pointing at me, this couple in the middle of this big forum. And so they just jumped on me and said, hey, Shafi Ahmed, we found you. Didn't know who they were, of course. I said, who are you? They said, we've come from Bolivia. We've been sent on a mission to come and find you in San Diego, which was quite surprising. I'd never been to South America, didn't know any Bolivians that I knew of, right? So I said, okay, I'm happy. They said, can you record a video for people of Bolivia so they know you're coming? I said, fine, I'll do a video. So we did a video. Hi, everyone. It's Shafi Ahmed, virtual surgeon here in San Diego and Exponential Medicine. I met two wonderful people from Bolivia.
Hi.
And we're looking forward to hopefully joining you sometime in the future, in the next year, to talk about the future of technology, education, artificial intelligence, VR, AR. So I'm delighted to be invited to Bolivia. Never been to South America before. Very excited to see you soon. So wish you luck. So then they handed me this certificate. I said, we really like your work. We've been following you for years. You can imagine the impact that you have. You don't realise people around the world actually do look at what you do, and perhaps the work that you do has some merit. And they said, look here, we want to award you a PhD honoring for your work that you do for humanity. Would you come and join us to... And I thought I was absolutely gobsmacked. I had no idea. I said, yeah, of course, I'd be happy to come. I then kind of forgot about it. And I was about another conference. I've given a lot of keynotes. I was in Mexico in 2018, giving a keynote at the Digital Health Forum. And then I got a little message from a guy called Mark Dockweiler. He said, Shafi, I know you're going to Mexico to give a keynote. Can I come and see you? I want to talk about your trip to Bolivia. I said, hey, why not? I'm in Mexico, South America, or Latin America, come and join me. So this is Martin, and he kind of texted me in the morning. That's his message in the morning. When I first met him, he said, look, can I meet you? Where are you? Let's come and talk. So he finally came and met me, and I finally found out his story. He's a man who runs 4 universities in Bolivia. He's democratized education for 11 million people to make education more accessible. And his healthcare was a huge importance to him because of the inequalities in his home country. And he said, we sat on the table at breakfast. He said, I've got your itinerary. Can I share it with you? And I shared with you. So day 1, he said, you'll be meeting the president of Bolivia, having breakfast, and addressing Congress and getting a Medal of Honor from the Congress. Fine, I said, great. Day 2, he said, well, you'll be going to Santa Cruz and getting the keys to the city from the mayor. And day 3, we'll give you an honorary PhD, and can you give a lecture to our medical school and university, and we'll do some publicity around that. So I looked at him for a while and said, well, I've had better offers in my life, but this is clearly not a bad offer. I'll consider that and see what we can do together. So then, of course, he made me come. So I was actually in Singapore working with the Ministry of Health on a project. And I had to literally fly from Singapore via London, via Madrid, to Santa Cruz de la Sierra. It's a 35-hour-long flight. Finally got there. And, you know, when you get these long flights, I was wearing a jacket, a T-shirt, a pair of jeans. I was a bit, unkempt, long journey, a bit sweaty, that kind of stuff. And I met him there. He said, no, you can't get off the plane. We're going straight to La Paz, which is that place at 10,000 feet in Bolivia. He goes, we need to meet people. They're waiting for you. Now imagine this. You land at La Paz airport, small airport. You go through the immigration. You get to the concourse. Normally looking for a taxi, looking for a coffee maybe to get out. Not quite in my case.
Llegó en horas de la mañana hasta el aeropuerto internacional del Alto. Es catalogado el gurú de la medicina. Es de profesión médico cirujano. El hindú Shafi Ahmed es reconocido en el mundo porque en el año 2016, con la ayuda de gafas con cámara de
I became national news. They wanted me to talk to VIP room to address the nation. This is why I came to Bolivia.
So I think that's
I addressed the nation. I hadn't realised this was such a big visit. But anyway, so we did that, and as you can see, I've just landed from a plane, completely kind of bedazzled by this kind of appearances anyway. So of course, then we travelled around Bolivia, and they said, right, you've got to go to the palace, they're waiting for you. I said, right, really? So he says, literally take me outside. They put me in a 4x4. They said, okay, we've got to get to the palace. And there was a palace that was waiting for me. So they brought me to 4x4. I didn't realise, actually, what they were giving me is my own motorcade. This was the government motorcade. I had 4 cars, 9 motorcycles around me, taking me fast-track through La Paz to meet the president of Bolivia. So this is what they sidetracked, of course. They went to a hotel, left me a room to get changed, ready for my meeting. And I did meet the president, Evo Morales, and Vice President Alvaro Linares, and talk about healthcare. And in fact, the president, at the end of our meeting, came down the steps to give a keynote to address the nation. He said, we found the solution for healthcare in Bolivia, and it's Shafi Ahmed. And no pressure, having not understood why I was going to that country in the first place. That's my invitation to figure out how we provide healthcare for 9.1 million people in Bolivia. Of course, I did get the keys to the city the day after. That's the mayor of Santa Cruz, give me the keys to the city. And also, then the day after, of course, I became a rock star for a while. And so I got my PhD, gave a lecture, etc. Then, of course, he said, that's all great. What we really brought you for here is to think about your vision around healthcare. Everyone has reimagined healthcare, make it more affordable. We know Bolivia's got a huge problem. It ranks quite low in the Global Health Index, of course, with low GDP, and also for the country that doesn't manage its health as well as it could do, not surprisingly. So how can we change that? Can you help us, etc.? By the way, they said, we want you to help us because we're building a hospital, and we're a poor country, but we're aiming much higher. We want to build something amazing for the world to be proud of, and they can see us as a country that's aiming high. So here's a hospital that we're building, and by the way, we really want you to be the CEO of the hospital. That's why you're here. But not only are you CEO, we're naming it after you. So I said, OK, well, that's interesting. This is the kind of vision they have in healthcare. And so, yes, so this is the kind of offer they had on me. So it's been hard to kind of say no to that kind of offer from a country that's desperate to improve its healthcare. I then thought about it for a while. I met in Paris. So it is a bit of a globe-trotting story. I do a lot of work, as I said before. I met in Paris, met Martin, who's the funding the whole hospital for $100 million. We shook hands at Paris, and yes, let's do something together. Let's raise the profile of South America and Bolivia in particular to raise the profile of the country. I then went to Sofia for a WebEx conference, which I run at Health Tech, which you should all come to if you can. And we kind of launched the whole program, what we're going to try and achieve in Bolivia.
Desde Bulgaria hay una muy buena noticia para Bolivia. Sí, señores, desde Sofía, la capital de Bulgaria, donde pasa esto.
And today, I'll announce something quite interesting. We're launching the first digital hospital in South America. My friends from Bolivia, in front row.
Se está llevando a cabo una feria futurista.
So we announced on a big stage with lasers, fires, and everything else. But so then we kind of figured out this is what it should look like. We had a long conversation about what did healthcare look like? How can we reimagine healthcare in that country? And of course, we thought about it a long while. We designed it. So it's a 250-bedded hospital that's built for all the specialties that require support. It's going to be pretty front-end facing, quite high-tech at the outset. It'll have a major cancer centre, a major cardiac centre, which they lack in Bolivia, of course. And so this is the kind of concept we came up with. And then they said, well, there's a blank canvas for the digital component. What is a digital hospital? So for someone like me who talks about digital health all the time and innovation, we had a blackboard to create something. So it was built down. What can I create? So we work with Google, we're working with G Healthcare, we're working with other major companies to figure out what does innovation look like and what do we put into its place that makes it future-proof for the future. This is the kind of stuff that we're putting as we speak, which will be ready in a few months' time, of course. So, ladies and gentlemen, you might think that's all a vision. No, this is reality. Here it is. This is opening in July of this year. I'll spend some time out there to kind of reconfigure and reimagine what healthcare might look like in a poor country that's aiming big. Thank you very much.